Hello everybody! I wanted to talk a little bit about the hardest part to swallow for voluntarism. And I say it's the hardest part to swallow because this is, in my experience, what people often suddenly get really upset about or suddenly get really kind of anxious about when we talk about true liberty. And that is the freedom to fail. And the freedom to fail is this concept that there aren't automatic, mandatory regulations or rules or protectionist policies which are there to act as some sort of mandated safety net. And a lot of people have trouble with this. They say, oh my gosh, if there isn't regulation, then we will have food that's full of gunk, and we'll have, cleaning products that are poisonous, and everything that we use is just going to be garbage. It'll be a giant race to the bottom, and all we're going to have is chaos and death and hurt, and no one will be able to have any sort of remedy for things that go wrong. If, maybe somebody eats a cookie and there's a rat's foot in it or something like that. And this is very hard to deal with for a lot of people because, A, they have this preconceived idea that in reality that there is some sort of secret checks and balances on every sort of business to make sure that products are generally good. It's not really the case, actually. There are regulations, but most companies in the day-to-day operate on a do their own whims kind of basis. And what that means is that while there are standards and regulations that people follow, and things that are prescribed, they are not actively enforced to the extent that there's somebody always watching. In other words, yeah, there's going to be regulations put up by the government saying these are the standards. We'll have an inspector come by, but there isn't somebody standing over every chain of command and process within a business watching whether or not a chicken's head gets lodged in your nugget, or whether or not there's a shard of glass, or whether or not there's actually poison. And even worse, when there are things that are deadly to someone's health, they can often get covered up because of the revolving door through government, and because of the patent office. Many companies hide information and keep from the public true remedies for a host of things, both in the technical world and for health reasons, actual cures and things like that. Sadly, that's the state of government as created through the patent office and through the copyright system. It's a suppression of knowledge. It's the dark ages of humanity, effectively, because it props up a couple of ideas and prevents people who may have even independently created things from putting out those ideas or working off old ideas and making them better. So taking that kind of background, going back into the, oh my gosh, like this is so hard to swallow, people have the freedom to feel. The issue isn't that people are going to suddenly fail dramatically and have absolutely no interest in their health, and there's going to be no companies out there that act with any sort of scrupulousness because they can just get away with whatever they want. It's just not the case, because people are going to associate and evaluate based on those demands. If there's a demand for safety, if there's a demand for good, clean food that doesn't have modifications to it that may be causing you cancer or might make you sick, if there's a demand for that, which there is right now, it's not a mystery that people want non-GMO, people want to eat healthier, that's a real demand, people pay for that. There are going to be systems that are created to A, evaluate food and production independently, and B, associations which are created based on that type of accountability. In other words, let's just say someone wants, company A's stamp of approval. The stamp of approval requires all these kinds of regulation or investigatory steps, and a company has to allow itself to be subject to this evaluation company's procedures in order to have this stamp of approval. Of course, someone can copy it or this or that, but the idea is that companies which create this review system have the ability to vet other companies and be a referral service, much like anything like Angie's List or something of that nature. And this demand doesn't just go for one company. So I'll be like, oh, well, they're just going to get bought off. It's like, well, reputation there has a matter too. There's always going to be other companies that do evaluations. There's going to be independent people who do evaluations. There's going to be competing companies that do evaluations. And as long as there's an opportunity to do something better, to create value for people that is better than the other person or have better benefits or perks. There's always going to be a race to the top as far as consumption goes, because when products are genuinely hurting people, people are not going to buy them. It's just not going to happen. People are not going to buy crappy stuff. Nobody goes to the store, buys something that tastes gross or they think is bad, and then says, I'm going to go get some more. And the monopolies that are created in keeping other people from making this stuff, again, it's largely due to government strictures. Current government strictures keep people from reprocessing ideas. It allows companies to hide an idea effectively through the patent office and keep others from using it. It also allows people to promote certain products or certain cures through, the FDA and so forth, with the government's stamp of approval while rejecting others. And of course, when it's certain kinds of pharmaceutical companies, if they have a revolving door, they get regulatory positions in and out, and investments and stocks in these companies. It gets very corrupt very quickly, and there's no market recourse. There's no opportunity for anybody to say, wow, you're so corrupt. I'm not going to give you my money this time. I'm not going to give you my tax money. What you're doing is really bad. I'm going to give it to someone that does better. There isn't that. Because of that monopoly, the cycle of abuse and manipulation just gets worse and worse. And people who are afraid of the opportunity for competition to produce something better are really not looking at the reality of the circumstances. People very much are confusing the evolution of governments in terms of scientific knowledge and ability to offer suggestions, while forgetting that those things largely came from human beings and individuals and private companies. The government adopts and uses tons of private contracting firms in order to carry out the things that it does. It's something that is not really a large-scale development of government. Some might say, well, what about NASA and all those unique things they did? It's like, absolutely, sure, the government can do things that are on the surface, not looking at how they got the means, but on the surface, good. They can make good recommendations. They can say, this food actually is bad for you. Sure, absolutely. But to say then that it's impossible for other people who are just not in that magic form of government to do the same is just ridiculous. A, because it exists right now. There are tons of people who are in private practice of sorts of private companies who create lists, evaluate products, and that has no end in sight. And the sharing of knowledge has no end in sight when the knowledge is not held back by a monopoly of force. And I think that the world has awakened to this reality, especially when you look at things like WikiLeaks, and you look at Edward Snowden, and you look at the information that has been spread because people are open to the idea of exposing these secrets. And it's like, wow, we're so much better as individuals in our decision making because we're better informed. And that's just where it goes. The end result is more information can lead to the potential of better choices. It doesn't mean you're going to make better choices. You can have all the information in the world and be a dunce when it comes to critical reasoning and make a bad choice. But what happens is when you spread the information, it allows people who do have good critical thinking skills, who are talented at problem solving, to then make the world a better place. And I want to live in a world where liberty is at the forefront, and that provides prosperity because individuals who are entrepreneurial, they have ingenuity, creativity, and they're driven, have access to this information that allows them to make amazing things and really grow peace, really grow the improvements in medical care, and really grow multicultural understanding. I don't want to sound like gushy-gushy here. That's the reality. When you humanize your experience with everybody else in the world, when you stop turning it into, it's this country or that country, and they have this religious belief or that religious belief, and so we're always going to be at ends. When you bring in the human element, and you have that shared information from top to bottom, from business to social, a lot of these conflicts disappear because you start to realize, wow, everybody really is, very connected in that way. Everybody has a lot of similar wants and desires, desires to be at peace, desires to be healthful, to be happy, and these things can come into picture when you remove away the lies, the manipulations, the taxation, theft, and everything else that causes this incredible stress on people, because nobody can ever really live free. Nobody can ever reach a point where they say, my debts are paid, I don't owe anybody anything today. It's very hard to get to that point. And the only way that that's going to happen is by increasing knowledge, increasing the spread of knowledge, getting rid of the strictures that restrict, or the structures that restrict knowledge from being spread, especially when it comes to inventions, when it comes to ideas about how to improve life. And so that's, kind of the sum picture here, is the fear of, oh my gosh, you know what I mean, the uncertainty of what could happen, and there's, there's no regulations, and there's no, base standard of conduct, there's no government to say, this is good or bad. People want to know, and so they act on that. It's just real life. Take care, everybody. Talk to you later.